Hey and welcome. In today's video, I want to share with you a simple technique that you can implement to make sure that you're getting the maximum amount of profit out of every single sale you make on Amazon FBA. So a quick story about my very first product. This is going way back. I had ordered 200 units and I had calculated that that was supposed to last about 30 days. And as soon as I put this listing live, it just started selling like crazy. And after about 4 or 5 days, I soon figured out that I was going to run out of inventory really quick. So partly out of necessity and partly out of intrigue, I figured if I increase the price, it's either going to stop the product selling, which I didn't really want, but it would have at least resolved the inventory product whilst I was waiting for the other ones to be manufactured overseas and to be delivered again. Or if the worst come to the worst, which isn't really a worst case, is I could bump the price up and then it would just continue to keep selling at the same pace. So what I did is it was a $30 product at that particular point in time, and I increased it by $5. And I just wanted to observe, is it going to slow down the sales, which is going to fix the inventory problem or potentially running out, or is it not going to affect the pace of the sales and how many I'm making? And then I just start making $5 extra per sale, which is a great thing as well. So I increased the price by $5 and it didn't change anything. They just kept selling and selling and selling at exactly the same pace as they were at $30. I had bumped them to 35, didn't make any difference. So about 2 days later, I bumped them up another $5, which took it up to $40. They carried on just selling and selling and selling and selling. And I was getting really close to the inventory running out at this point. So I figured, well, let's just bump it up again. So I bumped it up another $5. So it's gone from 30 to 35 to 40 to now at 45. And at that point in time, they just carried on selling. It didn't affect the pace or the volume of what I was selling at. And I was making $15 extra per sale. So whilst I did run into the problem of I sold out all 200 units very quickly, they went out of stock, and then I just had to sit and wait for the manufacturer who is over in China to remanufacture those and then to send it over again, which was about 3 weeks in total. It also taught me a very valuable lesson very early on, is don't leave money on the table. Don't ever be afraid to play around with that price point, because I understand when you're doing your product research, you see all your competitors, you kind of see like a field or a variance of where that you think that you can fit into that. And common logic is that most people try to go in a little bit cheaper just to ensure that they're going to get some organic sales and then start bumping the price up once it's established. But you don't necessarily always need to do that. As long as you've got a product that's selling, don't be afraid to play around with that price. In some cases, you may need to reduce it slightly. Just leave it like that for a couple of days and see how that changes things. But if you're in the situation where you're selling at a very fast pace, that means that people are willing to pay for that product and they're happily paying that. So just increase the price up ever so slightly. Typically I would say about 20%. Do a 20% increase in the price and just monitor it for a couple of days and see how that goes. If it doesn't affect the volume of the sales and they just keep selling at the same pace, then do it again and do it again, and just keep increasing it up until you get to the point where you either, in my case, you run out of inventory anyway, or you eventually get to kind of like a plateau where you realize people aren't willing to pay. For example, in this case, for this item, I'm sure they wouldn't have been paying $60 for it. So it kind of topped out at around the $45 mark. But don't leave money on the table. I thought that I was going to be selling these products for $30 and ended up selling them for $45. So for every single sale I was making, I was leaving 50% on the table. I was leaving $15 out of what I thought was going to be $30, just leaving it on the table. So I increased it up to 45, and for every single sale from that point on, I was making an additional $15. For me, this is one of those ninja tricks that not a lot of people talk about. There's so many videos out there on YouTube and on the internet of how to make more sales, and they're very, very valuable. I've got plenty of videos coming out planned for the future which will be teaching those exact things. But driving the volume up of how many sales you're trying to get is one thing. Making the most out of every single sale that you're already making is something completely different. The analogy that I was giving when I was trying to explain this to somebody recently is if you had to go out into an orchard and you had to collect 100 apples versus 200 apples, you're having to put in a lot more work to get 200 apples. But why would you not just try and get the most amount out of each apple? So if you're making apple juice, for example, why would you not try to get as much juice out of each apple, and you wouldn't necessarily need to go and get 200? You may very well be able to just get 100, but to squeeze as much juice out of every single one as possible to get the same amount of total juice. And it's exactly the same thing as this. It's kind of a crazy analogy, but if you can make 50% more on every single sale just from making the same amount of sales, why would you not do that? It's really just trying to get your head around getting the most out of every single sale versus trying to drive sales up. Of course, you always want to be making more sales, but making more sales and getting as much as you possibly can out of each sale is going to get you tenfold more money in the future. If after watching this video you've got any additional follow-up questions or comments, just leave them in the comments section below and I'll get round to checking them 2 to 3 times a day. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button. I've got a ton of videos coming out in the future. Thanks for watching.